Okay, so I'm going to show an example on grouping. Okay, so the idea of grouping, right, literally is you are grouping some of the bubble. So in the characteristic of grouping, usually you will see four bubbles. So usually when you see four bubbles, right, we will be grouping two by two. So commonly we'll be grouping two bubbles and two bubbles. But at the end of this topic, you will see that there are some questions with four bubbles. But when you group them, right, you group them three by one. That means three one side, then there'll be one person solo. Okay, so later on you'll come to that kind. But currently, I'm going to show you two by two. I'm going to show you that we will split into two bubbles and two bubbles first. Okay, so four bubble, and I'm going to switch to, okay, so how are you going to group them? You will be grouping them in such a way. So in this case, right, I'll be grouping 5x plus 5y. Because just by looking at 5x plus 5y, I see a common factor. And I also try another group. I also see a common factor. And in fact, after I do out, you must be able to see that the bracket is a common factor. So your grouping, you must be able to group in such a way that you can see a bracket as a common factor. If your grouping doesn't lead you to a bracket as a common factor, then your grouping is wrong. So you will take out the common factor. You are left with 5 plus A. So your grouping must always end up with a bracket as a common factor. Otherwise, you got to regroup. Okay, so there will be some instances we got to regroup. So for example, here, I'm going to try this group first. So if I look at this group, a 3p is my common factor. So I get x minus 3y. So I'm going to try this group. And I'm going to take out a minus 4q. So when I try to group them, I end up with this bracket as a common factor. So it does work. So the grouping works. So you just transfer back. And you will take out the bracket as a common factor. Then you are left with this. So that is called grouping. Okay. So let's try some more. Usually I won't try to reshuffle first. I will try to take the first two and then see whether I will really get the same brackets or not first. I wouldn't want to reshuffle. So in this case, yes, I managed to get a bracket as a common factor. So the grouping works. So take out the common factor, take out the common factor. So the brackets is your common factor. So take the bracket, you are left with a plus x. So that is a common factor. Okay, so let's try another grouping. Okay, so this one, right, if you take a look at this, just by looking at the two terms, you don't see any common factor. So if you look at 15mx minus 2ny, you kind of doesn't see any common factor. So this one, you can't even take it because you already know that there are no common factor. So we are going to reshuffle. So you see them as a bubble. So make sure you reshuffle them as a bubble. So maybe I reshuffle like this. And then the middle two, I push it to the back. So I'm going to try the 15m first. 15mx plus 10my. I think I do see a common factor. I do see a 5m. So I will get a 3x plus 2y. And I'm going to try taking this part. So this one is a little bit more tricky because there's negative here. So my common factor is actually the negative n. So I will get 2y plus 3x. So 2y plus 3x and 3x plus 2y, are they the same? Take a look. It's like apple plus orange, orange plus apple. So they are the same. So that will be my common factor. So in this case, you need to do some reshuffling first before you can see the common factor. So what are the common mistakes? If let's say you're within the group, within the little group, you already can't factorize properly, you will find that you will have a lot of mistakes. So take out the common factor, you are left with 5m minus n. So that's how grouping works. So usually I will take it as, take the first two as one group, then the last two as one group. Then I make sure that I end up having a bracket as a common factor. But if I do not end up as a bracket as a common factor, I need to reshuffle them. So that will be the basic idea for grouping. This is only the basic idea. So there is another asterisk example, which I will be going through in a while.